So earlier in the year, I stumbled into a pawn shop that was selling these NECA pack of figures from the first Gears of War game, and after researching, I think I learned that this is a repacked set with figures from the first wave of the toys release. None of these guys are exclusive in any way, just an easy way to get them. NECA toys in general are such a rarity in this country still, regardless, so I was pretty excited to see this. I paid 160 NZD for this, that's $40 per figure, which was around how much they were when I saw them in Toys R Us in Australia back when they first released when I was a kid. Nowadays, NECA figures cost around like 70 bucks minimum NZ, not that these match in the same quality of the NECA toys to today's standards, but still, I haven't seen any Gears of War figures here otherwise, so I just decided to grab them, and I left that town now anyway, so had I not grabbed them, I would have missed them entirely. The packaging is this massive giant box, it's so big that it didn't fit in my filming space. We've got some sun damage artwork here because it was in the shop for a good couple of years, they told me. It shows off the group plus a Theron guard here on the side. On the back of the box we have images of the characters in toy form, plus a little paragraph on each of the characters as well. I think it's really fun when toy brands use their figures for the promotional material of their characters. So this is the set all opened up and on display. There's some really interesting things to point out here with these toys, some stuff that's really questionable as well. I actually think that each figure here shows off a different form of articulation to one another, which is both a great thing but also a bad thing. It does mean that all of the figures are unique to themselves, it also means that a few of them are lacking in some areas. So this is Baird, he's one of the main supporting characters and playable in his own spin-off game Gears Judgment. The face details for all of these figures is really rough, I won't lie, I'll just get it out the way now. Usually animated characters I think look great when they're adapted into toys, the likeness is a lot easier to translate, and NECA have proven time and time again that they have made some amazing likenesses, but these gamer figures, brutal. I do like the wear and tear that he's got for his armor, and the coloring chosen for him is nice as well. The blues really stand out on the display here, especially amongst the other figures here. Some of those details don't quite match up here though. You can see here that if I try to match the design of the belt parts for his hips and his leg, it means that he's always going to be stepping forward like this and he's prone to falling over. Sure, bending his leg partially will be able to help out, but he's quite a heavy figure anyway, so he usually ends up tumbling every time I try to display him. But some great details again for his armor within all of those areas. For articulation, rotates in the head but it's a bit stiff. He can rotate his arm up and move it around. He can rotate in his elbow but not bend it in any way. His hand has its own movements too for rotates actually, and the same can be said for the other arm. He can rotate in his waist. His legs can move somewhat upwards but not really out. He does feature some bends in his knee and even then some very minor foot movements. So I'll show off what I believe to be his accessory here. It's the Nasher shotgun. Each of the cog weapons really could go with any of the members though. The shotgun looks pretty cool. I really love when video game weapons are turned into toys here. I love the attention to detail that items like this can receive. The thing is though, and this is problematic of all of the cog figures here, they can't really hold on to any of their weapons. You can sit the weapons in their hands, definitely, but that's about as far as it can kind of go. I don't know if I'm doing something wrong here. Maybe the Nasher isn't supposed to be for him, but unfortunately, it's just not quite as secured in as I would have wanted it to be. And this is Marcus Fenix, who is the main protagonist for Player 1 for the mainline trilogy of games. I originally thought that his facial details were probably one of the worst one here, but actually, from the right angle, it's not too bad really. He's got some similar details to Baird here, some little hints of color in the patterns and insignias. He's heavier as an action figure, but he is able to stand quite well. For his articulation, he too can rotate at his head. He actually does have bends in his arms, so he can move outwards slightly, and he can also rotate his forearm. He also features some elbow bends, really nice to see on a figure like this, and some rotates in the hand as well. And the same can be said for the other side. He can also rotate in his chest area with some slight movements in his legs that can rotate outwards and spin around in the upper leg area. He also has some knee bends and some slight feet movements. Overall, really impressed with the Marcus figure the most so far. For his accessories now then, first up we have this little MX8 snub pistol. It looks really nice for what it is, and I've had him holding it this whole time. It is tough to properly fit the weapon into his hand and have his finger on the trigger just because of how hard all that plastic is. He also naturally includes a Lancer rifle. You get 3 of them actually in this pack, so 1 per figure. The Lancer rifle here is a very thin model, and you can see that there has been some definite warping issues within my packaging over the past few years. I wish that this was a lot more bulkier to prevent this issue, but that possibly goes against the design. I'm not sure though. Those real life replicas that they would sell at the video game stores, they were always really big and beefy, and they looked great to me, so it's proof that it can still work. He can't hold the gun at all in his right hand. It's just way too big of a space, presumably for the Nasher maybe, and too tricky to kind of make it as though he's holding it with both hands. He also includes the Hammer of Dawn, on, it's the only one of these included in this pack. Also nice detailing around this item, and it's a lot thicker of a piece as well, so it should fit nicely. Actually, it doesn't. Same kind of issue here. Nothing seems to fit in his hand. So back to the left hand instead, where it seems to work out just fine. So this is Dom, always delegated to player 2, so this was always my brother's character as we grew up playing these games. Dom easily has the worst facial details of the 4 figures, very sorry to report. I don't know what happened here exactly, but it's certainly off from the overall design. There's a lot wrong here, from the asymmetrical design of the head, to the lazy eyes and the ugly facial hair. He does make up for all of that in some extra details that aren't present on the other figures though. Here we've got some extra weapons stashed away like a knife and another XM8 snub pistol. It's located there in a rubberized holster on his chest, a tattoo detail on his arm of Maria, and some dirt printing on his legs. I like the body molds and the extra details for Dom here compared to say the Marcus figure, and I also like seeing that contrasting design of having some exposed skin in his arms. Trying to match his belt and harness pattern details though, it means that his legs are always going to end up like this. For his articulation, he can rotate at the head very easily. He also has bends and rotates in his arm, and his forearm can rotate too. You can actually see the peg here is starting to stick out a little. He does also have some bends in the elbows, and his hands can also move around. Same can be said for the other side. He can rotate in his upper torso here, and his legs have the same movements as Marcus. They can rotate up, but there's no full movement here like if there would be a ball joint connection. My figure joints were so stiff it just wasn't cooperating with me on this day of filming. He already has a Lancer rifle in hand here, but now I'll show you that yes, that pistol can be removed from his holster, which is a really cool added detail. I really love it when figures have hidden weapons like this. He was packaged with the gun already in his holster. Here is the Locust Theron guard, who was part of the reason for me buying this. I love the idea of having a pack that features some good guys and a villain for the display, and he looks phenomenal really. The horror details that this guy has with the dark and red coloring and that royal attire, it really goes a long way. He's a much bulkier designed figure compared to the others, and he's got some more sharper parts all around. A rubbery design for that dress also means that you can still easily access all of his articulation. For his articulation, he can rotate at his head. He's also got some arm movements here too, rotates and bends, and a hidden section in the lower arm for some movements also. He can actually rotate at the hips this time kind of, and his legs can rotate like the others. He's also got some knee bends and some slight feet movement too. He is the toughest and heaviest figure of the bunch, so standing him does take a little bit of effort, especially when you give him his torque bow. Speaking of which, that's his one accessory. It's a really cool inclusion to have. Just as sharp as the rest of the figure though, getting him to hold on to this was actually painful. It was really difficult. It really needs to be squeezed in there. His fingers are so sharp, it's that type of really hard plastic that just kind of hurts. It made it a lot more difficult than it possibly needed to be. But there you have it. That's my look at a NECA Gears of War 4 pack that I managed to just stumble upon in my small city. I like this pack as a piece of nostalgia for me more so than I actually like those figures. Like I said, that NECA brand was always a rarity for me here in NZ, same with the McFarlane brand, so those toys are really close to my heart just because it was more like a forbidden fruit item to me. The toys are interesting, they've got some nice details and some really ugly likeness issues. The weapons I think are really cool, but the characters just can't really hold on to them, so it's going to hurt my overall display. I have to imagine the line was very successful, and ideally they showed improvements as it went on because NECA managed to pump out quite a few waves of this license, and good for them. It's cool to see video games getting that kind of treatment. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you've seen here, liking and subscribing does help to support this channel loads, and I hope to see you in the next video.